Welcome to Into the Unknown with Mike and John. Season 2, Episode 2. My goodness.
Episode
We're
2.
cranking them out, John. Now,
It's been a week.
It's been.
Did you have a good week?
Has it? Time. You know what? Time travel is
Remarkable.
real. It's real because we're living it right now. We are actually living the future, but it's really only 20 minutes ago that we wrapped up Part 1. So Season 2, Episode 1 of Missing 411, we wrapped up 20 minutes ago. Here we are recording Episode 2. But to you, it's a week later, so yeah, it's Season 2, Episode 2. And in this season's kickoff episode follow-up, Part 2...
That was good. That was
Believe
good.
that? Yeah.
You saved that.
Yeah. We examine, or continue to examine, the Missing 411, the cultural phenomenon. And this is all about missing person cases. Now, if you recall, at the beginning of Season 2, Episode 1, we made a caveat right up front that John and I are certainly sensitive to the idea that missing person cases are very serious, and we are definitely talking about these ideas, and exploring for sure the paranormal. We are opening up all the different rabbit holes and looking at them, but we do not for a moment believe that we should lose sight of the fact that folks are missing. So we want to make sure that folks are aware of that. So as you listen to these cases, I hope you enjoy the spirit of exploration, but we're also keeping our eyes on these because as we move about the world, we could maybe bring closure to some of these. Now, with that in mind, I'm Mike Duber.
And I'm still John Fitzpatrick.
You still are. And I'm
are.
looking across, and there you are.
Here
and
I
we're
am.
the same folks, and we're going to dig back in and pick up where we left off. Now, just to bring you back up to speed, we started off with a description of Missing 411. This is the cultural phenomenon surrounding missing person cases as presented by David Paulides. I almost said Paul again. It's David Paulides. I see that Paul in the beginning of his name, and I want to repeat it for some reason.
It distracts you.
It
But
does.
remember, he's not a Beatle.
It's not George. It's not Ringo Paulides.
No,
It's David.
not a Beatle at all.
No. David Paulides. And so, David, thank you for putting this information together for everybody. Now, we described the story. We reviewed the 411 criteria points that he uses to characterize the cases so that you are well familiar with those right up front.
If you're not, go back and listen to episode 1.
Yeah, listen to episode 1 because we're not going to repeat them because we know we have a lot to get through.
We're only on chapter 2, so
Yeah,
we got a lot
didn't
to
get
cover.
very far. But John did a very, very thorough job of chapter 1. And when we say chapters, these are the chapters in the movie. So the movie, the 411, The Hunted, is presented in a series of chapters. Now, we covered the case of Thomas Messick, and we walked through some of the theories that are out there. We talked about the pros and cons of certain theories. We pulled out Occam's razor and decided if that was a good mental model here. And we said maybe, depends on what your subjective view of the world is. That's important. So look up Occam's razor and learn all about it. I'll put it in the show notes. And then, again, we had a long discussion, and we went long, but, we feel like this is just really good to dig into these areas, and we decided to do a thought experiment about the paranormal, Sasquatch, UFOs, and John introduced us to the Pukwudgies and the indigenous lore around some of these diminutive creatures that are also paranormal, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so without any further ado, let's jump into Chapter 2 and continue this adventure. So the next chapter is called the Santa Fe Cluster. Now, this chapter discusses a series of 3 unique disappearances centered around Santa Fe, New Mexico. Now, overall, the cluster contains 15 cases in Santa Fe National Forest, an area covering 1.6 million acres. Out of 59, the movie will focus on 3. Now, just to be clear, we're not going to do a lot of deep diving on these. The movie does a good job of digging into some. We just want to give you a familiarity with these chapters and these cases, and we're gonna try and make some pit stops at some areas that we think are interesting. So the first case that the chapter 2 discusses is the case of Audrey Kaplan, missing July 30th, 2014. Now, this is a 75-year-old woman who's out mushroom hunting. She was with her husband, but separated from him and disappeared. So there is that point of separation that the two were hiking together, but for one reason or another, it's not described. She separates from him and then vanishes. Now, on the 5th day of searching, she was found in the fetal position, completely nude, in a shallow stream. Now, if you remember the criteria points, water plays into this. This is what they're talking about. Now, even though it's a shallow stream, it's still a body of water. She was found in it. Her cause of death was ruled hypothermia, but despite the autopsy discovering no evidence of it. So in the movie, we see that there's an autopsy report, but it says, we believe this to be hypothermia, and this is probably largely influenced by the circumstances she was found in a desert area, unclothed, unprotected, unshielded overnight. But nonetheless, the autopsy didn't discover any evidence of it, and that is on record. So that makes that case strange. The next is the case of Melvin Nadell. Now, Melvin went missing while elk hunting with 2 companions. Melvin walked 100 yards from the camp to hunt from a blind, while the other men hunted in the opposite direction, walking off into the wilderness to conduct their hunt. So he stayed behind. He was near the camp. When they returned at dusk, they did not find Mel. Now, he had hunted close to the camp because of a knee injury, so he was not going to be doing very well trying to cross rugged terrain. 6 days of searching by multiple dog teams and searchers and 2 helicopters turned up nothing. Mel is still missing. The movie does a very good job of going into that case as well. I would encourage you to go take a look. Now, the next case is the case of Stanley Vigil. Now, this is 10 miles from the Mel Nadell case, and this one is equally strange. Stanley Vigil went missing November 7th, 2017, chasing after deer on a foggy, rainy day. After 7 days, he was found next to a river 9 miles from his point of separation. Dogs could not detect his scent. Now, we are covering these rather lightly and skipping many of the data points of interest, but our goal is to not necessarily convince you, but to paint a picture of the common criteria and the odd nature of these cases that Paulides is pointing out. Again, all of these do present as strange, and that is Chapter 2, and that is known as the Santa Fe Cluster. Now, the next case we cover is Chapter 3. This is the case of Aaron Hedges. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, this case brings in some very interesting aspects. And so let's dig in. 38-year-old Aaron Hedges heads into the mountains with friends on a 1-week camping trip. By all accounts, he is experienced. The area is near Big Timber, Montana, known as the doorway to the Crazies, as in the Crazy Mountains. Now, geologically, the Crazies are somewhat unique, or rather very unique. They are an igneous upthrust, or stock, as geologists call them. And the point here is the stock rock is different from the surrounding rock through which the stock protrudes. That is, it is distinct from the Rockies, and it is one of the younger ranges in North America. I mention this not to bore you with unnecessary geology, but it lays the groundwork for some ideas that get presented later. And that namely is perhaps the geology of these certain places playing a role in what's happening here. Now, interestingly, in the movie, a local who was interviewed says the Crazies got their name from the Crow Indians who cursed the range after being moved from their reservation, wishing for, quote, the wind to blow and to drive the white man crazy. Now, Wikipedia says the Crow people called the mountains Awaxawipia, roughly translated, and I'm sure I butchered that.
I'm just so proud of you for being brave enough to try.
Yeah, I'm sure I am missing lots of pronunciation. Awaxawipia.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I could do it.
Yeah.
Sort of,
no, I mean,
maybe.
I can do, Swami Panchadasi, but man, I got to brush up on my crow.
Yeah.
Now, that's Waxawapia, roughly translated as ominous mountains, or even more roughly, it's translated crazy mountains. So there you go. Now, these were famous to the Crow people for having metaphysical powers and being unpredictable, a place used for vision quests. So there you go. I mean, your indigenous are saying this is a place that is powerful. They go there for vision quests. And it's an interesting point.
I'm trying to remember if the movie said something about this being a place where their divinity resided, or if I am conflating this with some other media that I watched at roughly the same time.
Not uncommon. That does not come to mind. I watched the movie a couple times just so I could gather the information. That doesn't come to mind, that the source of their divinity is there. Like they base it there.
Yeah, I'm probably remembering something else.
I think you might be.
I spent a lot of time between seasons, absorbing new material, and it's probably my mistake.
Yeah, conflating them. I think maybe you, but I think further to the west, Shiprock does.
Okay,
but that's in Arizona.
And the other,
but that's not uncommon.
They
base their whole cosmology on a spot because of what they experienced there.
Right.
Yeah. But that would be worth looking up. I'm going to go back and check it out. Now, Paulides interviews Undersheriff of the Sweetgrass County Sheriff's Office, Alan Roneberg, and he's the SAR coordinator. So he's the undersheriff and he's the SAR, that's Search and Rescue Coordinator, S-A-R, SAR. And she's the SAR coordinator in Big Timber, and he's been there for 25 years. So this guy has been around. Now, back to Aaron. And I think what we'll try and do is try and get some map in the show notes so you can follow along at home. It does get a little complicated. We'll do the best we can, but I think we'll try and pull up the points that are interesting and noteworthy. Now, Aaron and the two friends made base camp at a place called Campfire Lake on Thursday, September 3rd for that week-long trip. On Saturday, September 5th, Aaron leaves the group, there's your point of separation, and sets off for Sunlight Lake, the location of a cache they are known to have, right? So they'll take supplies up and they'll cache them, they'll hide them so that, when they come back, they can use them. A lot of times their trips are maybe just pulling supplies for their later use. Now, these folks are going out regularly to hunt. And again, I point out, this is the point of separation. At 5 p.m. Is when we are supposed to, we learn that Aaron is carrying a GPS walkie-talkie, and that at 5 p.m., the walkie-talkie has captured a GPS location for him. Now, there's a little bit of confusion about whether a call was made to him or that it pings regularly. I wasn't entirely sure, and they don't go into any conversation that would have been that had between them. But what we learn is this: his GPS position is beyond a left turn in the path he is supposed to take that leads to the cache. So he was supposed to take a left, but he went straight. He missed the turn, right? That doesn't seem too strange. Now, mind you, this terrain that they're navigating is best navigated by said paths. cuts made through mountains might be circuitous, but they are direct. And otherwise, you're cutting across scree fields, which is just scads of loose rock on inclines. I mean, this is not the wise way to go. If there's a path cut, you take it. Cutting a corridor means climbing a very high peak, and that's the way to navigate using these paths. Although off track, he is nonetheless still on the right-hand path that parallels the Sawgrass River, and so his friends wait for him, right? I mean, he's a grown man. He knows the mountains. He's been out here before, and so this is what we're presented in the movie. Now, Paulides and Sheriff Ronenberg, they're questioning, did he simply miss the turnoff? It's pretty obvious. Getting disoriented here is unlikely, right? Again, he's got a river near him. If after a while the turn doesn't present itself, he would just turn around and go back. So they're a little confused here. Additionally, he has a phone, but he makes no call. And so there's some questions here about Aaron and his location and the path that he's following. Now, let's keep going. On September 6th, Aaron does not return from Sunlight Camp. His friends spend Sunday searching for him. So that's September 6th. They spend the whole day searching for him. Monday, September 7th at 4 p.m., a snowstorm begins, and that's one of our criteria points. The storm will dump 18 to 24 inches of snow in 12 hours. And it is at 9 p.m. on Monday, September 7th, Aaron's friends finally call for help. Now, Park County searches from the camp east, and the Sweetgrass County searchers from downstream west. They find no snow tracks. There is a pilot in the air and is dropping off dog teams into the area. So you really have two teams that are trying to converge from the east and the west and meet in the middle to locate Aaron in this snowy wilderness, but they are finding nothing. Now, here's where the interesting parts begin. On Wednesday, September 9th, 2014, boots are found. This is the second full day of searching. Now, they are located on a bench overlooking the falls, and the bench is really just a level area of ground. It's a high area over the river. It overlooks the river, and the boots are placed, as we learn, side by side. They also find a water bladder that is a camelback water bladder that you would wear on your back and use to drink water. They find a fire pit just off the trail. They find a charred box of Aaron's brand of cigarettes. Now, they've searched this area with a fine-tooth comb, and what they mention here, although I didn't look it up, they called it a Type 3 search. So if I were to assume that this is an interesting area, Type 3 search is like they're looking at individual rocks. They're looking very closely. They're looking for small details. Now, they also find a fire bundle partially burned. 2 waist belts are in the fire pit. And here in the movie, they talk about why those would be. These are portions of a backpack that are meant to keep the pack strapped around your waist. But that's it. That's what they find. They offer some theories of why he would have taken those waist belts off in the first place. But then again, why are they in the fire pit? Now, they had searched the area 2 days earlier and never saw any of these things. So this is a case where these items appeared in a place that had been previously searched. Now, they're thinking hypothermia at this point. After all, there's snow on the ground. He's trying to make a fire. It seems to be confused. He's doing weird things like taking the waist belts off of his backpack. Even though that might have perfectly good reasons, it just seems strange to them. And so hypothermia causes strange mental effects, and they call this typical behavior of someone in hypothermia to be doing strange things. And they focus on this area. They figure he can't get that far away from this location if he is indeed hypothermic. But also the dogs don't hit on anything. So they really run up against a brick wall here. I mean, they've found a lot, but it doesn't explain anything. As a matter of fact, it just makes it more confusing. Now, on September 22nd, 2014, I mean, there's a long time from September 9th, the search ended. 60 ground searchers had been involved, 20 canine teams, 2 helicopters looking for Aaron. But all they found was what was mentioned on the bench above the water. Let's keep going. June 22nd, 2015. This is 9 months later. Ranchers interviewed throughout the chapter find an orange vest and a backpack leaning on a tree. The discussion is that they found it leaning as if placed there. It wasn't scattered. It wasn't torn apart, simply leaning on a tree. In the pack is Aaron's driver's license. There's snack bars. There's a handgun, a .44 Ruger Red Hawk. His bow is there, and also a lighter. Nearby, maybe 100 yards to the north, there is a cup, there's an open energy drink, and all of this is in sight of the road and the rancher's ranch. So this is all discovered. If someone is just wandering through, and we presume it's Aaron, he's within almost shouting distance of the ranch, the road. He could have easily accessed it, but that apparently was not the case. Let's move ahead in time yet again. On August 8th, 2016, this is almost a full year later, over a year later, his skull was found. Also found were his pelvis, a femur bone, the cell phone, and a jacket. The data from the cell phone, as we learned, was unrecoverable. There was no pants found, no socks, no shoes. Well, we know the boots were found on the bench. There's virtually nothing else found, and most of his bones are missing. Now, the location where these bones were found is 11 air miles from the camp and 6 miles from where his boots were found on the bench. And I know without a map it's hard to visualize, but the point here is the distances are vast and long and over rugged terrain. And a good bit of this he is purportedly supposed to have traveled hypothermic without shoes on. It doesn't add up, according to the sheriff. And that is pretty much his assessment. Now, questions that they have coming out of this chapter. Why did he miss the turn and change direction? How is it that his bones are found, 6 miles from the falls and 11 miles from the original camping site? Now, as we get into theories here, although I didn't skim for common theories on the Hedges case, they would likely take the normal form that we reviewed in last week's episode. John, you covered a good bit of these that cover the options of, there's a murder involved, that he's come across somebody in the woods that is, they have an altercation and he's killed. We're also leaving the paranormal elements on the table. And so this is the Hedges case. So as I mentioned, these bring in some very interesting elements, right? And this is not a case where everything, including the body, is gone without a scent. Now we have sort of a debris trail, if you will. And I say that very specifically, a debris trail. So what are your thoughts on the Hedges case, John?
Well, we're into the unknown here.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the one offers a wide, there's almost unlimited range that you could do here. And I can narrow this down. I do want to let you have your thoughts, obviously, okay. But I think there's something we could focus on that would be interesting and informative to talk through.
And that is?
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll get to that. What are your thoughts? We'll get to that.
I thought you might want to focus on just the one thing. There is a lot here, and there are some things that are, presented as mystifying to the average person that are common in a lot of the cases. At least that's my understanding. Like the distances involved and the missing clothes and shoes and things. I think what I think I want to focus on just those two things. In that the man's gone. Well, he's gone for years in this case, but we're probably expecting him to be missing out in this environment for a week or so.
Yeah.
And we're saying he covered 11 miles.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah.
Because, probably wasn't direct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And well, I mean, there's a path that leads. So, I mean, if we had the map, what I would show you is that there is a path. So it wouldn't have been.
But I want to. Okay. So yes, I understand how when these things are presented, it's like he covered all this distance without his shoes, and that seems like an interminable distance for those of us who like to get slippers as soon as we get out of bed. But 11 miles in say a week's time frame is a little over a mile a day.
Yeah.
I can do roughly 3 miles an hour is the usual pace at walking. I mean, give or take an age and all that. This guy's fit. He's 38. So yeah. I don't think 11 miles is that great a distance overall.
Yeah.
Yes, 6 miles without shoes. Again, I understand. It sounds impossible. But at a certain point, we have to assume that something is happening here. And I'm going to get to that too. They bring up hypothermia.
Yeah.
And the missing clothes.
Right.
So there is a phenomenon, and I did look into this a little bit because it's very common in hypothermia cases, and SAR teams are trained to expect this, called paradoxical undressing.
Right.
Did you run into any of that?
But that's, when we say hypothermia, it explains a lot of the odd behavior.
Right.
Nobody disputes that.
Yeah, so hypothermia, if there is hypothermia, and we don't know for sure here, that will affect your mental outlook and how you choose to do things.
Right.
And you may just stumble.
Yeah, you're out of your mind.
Right.
Basically.
At a certain point.
Comes down to.
At a certain point.
Right.
With the paradoxical undressing, what I pulled up I did some looking around in different places, but Wikipedia, as usual, summarizes things neatly. And it said 20 to 50% of hypothermia deaths are associated with paradoxical undressing. This typically occurs during moderate and severe hypothermia. As the person becomes disoriented, confused, and combative, they may begin discarding their clothing, which in turn increases the rate of heat loss. Rescuers who are trained in mountain survival techniques are taught to expect this. However, people who die from hypothermia in urban environments who are found in an undressed state are sometimes incorrectly assumed to have been subjected to sexual assault. That's because it can happen in both places.
Right.
Because it's a mental thing. They don't know the particular explanation for what causes this. One explanation for the effect is it's a cold-induced malfunction of the hypothalamus, the part of the brain that regulates body temperature. Another explanation is that the muscles contracting peripheral blood vessels become exhausted. They relax, and that leads to a sudden surge of blood and heat to the extremities, causing the person to feel overheated, even though they're not. So, again, science, medicine isn't sure what causes this, but it is a known thing, and it does have something to do with the person's, for whatever reason, feeling overheated despite the fact they're losing heat.
Well, and that adds up with testimony and descriptions of those that freeze to death. You think that it's terribly torturous because you're very, very cold, and actually what the description is that folks that have been brought back from the edge of that said, well, actually it was quite peaceful because I was quite warm. So there is a temperature drop.
Your body
there's a as they call it, a paradox, right? Your body actually is, and is probably also releasing DMT. Frankly, as you're nearing death, you're not suffering. And
it's probably a case of so it's probably a case of a couple of things happening in your physiology at the same time. The delusions, there may be some physiological effects of your body trying to compensate and overheating you at the very end. It's hard to again,
Yeah.
much-
Well, we had to look at the
Again,
actual physiological reasons.
humanities major, liberal arts major,
yeah, right. Yeah.
didn't law degree, not a medical degree.
You slept in the hotel last night, so you
second
can
guess
onboard
doctors.
some cachet from your hotel staff.
Right. But it's not. None of that is truly inexplicable. It falls into well-established patterns.
And this is something that they consider. Now, the
Yeah.
other thing is, in this week that you're saying, right, that he's,
weekish, yeah.
well, I mean, 4 days or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, the time that he is supposed to be hypothermic and wandering the countryside
Which
and
is like
leaving
3
his stuff
days in?
scattered all over the place, there are also 60 ground searchers and 20 K-9 teams and 2 helicopters looking for the guy.
Right.
And we're talking about an 11-mile area.
So that came up in some
You
of the
know.
research I did, and you have to remember that you have 60 searchers to give a number.
Right. That's
and
what
one,
they said.
and one person being searched for. So you have 61 people all moving around
Right.
at the same
That
time.
doesn't convince me.
I know, but it is
not when you've got air support. You've got a guy that is hypothermic. Yeah, that's fine.
yeah.
I mean, I get it.
I'm
right,
just-
they're
I'm
all
just-
moving.
I'm
They
just
could
throwing it out there.
miss each other.
Yeah.
The
You
other
want-
thing, there was a reason why I said that these paths are the way that you choose to travel.
Yeah.
Now,
I follow
Now,
that.
the other thing is-
I'm not touching that one because I don't have any kind of reasonable explanation,
Well,
and
if
I'm
you have
admitting
an
that.
unreasonable person that chooses to cross a scree field, right? And it's like, well, we're not going to be effective by crossing the scree field searching for this guy. I mean, I recognize that. I'm not knocking them down, but I am saying like,
there's unusual
there are
stuff here.
60 people converging on his location shortly after he's discovered gone. Now, the question would be like in the same case, Messick was never there. Did Aaron somehow leave the area while they converged, searched, and then come back? Right, and then as they come back again,
if he heads in an unexpected direction and then turns
and
around,
then turns around and
which
comes
is
back, because
one of the-
he's
right.
delirious, right? At this point, presumably, right?
But there are other things here that, like I said, I can't really touch because I can't explain it. There is a reasonable explanation for him dropping his stuff in the sense that at a certain point it becomes heavy.
right,
But
yeah,
why didn't he
eat the bar.
eat the bar? Why didn't he drink
had
the
a
water?
lighter.
Why did he leave the light? Lighters are not that heavy. I mean, I can understand, I dropped some things, but I probably lighten my pack if I'm rational. But again, that's the thing is we don't know at what point he becomes
I'm willing
unrational.
to say that a lot of this happened. The guy is irrational, and which would also explain if he does get himself to that point and he's overlooking, safety, he doesn't even know enough to call out.
Yeah.
So it's mysterious.
The last thing about the when they find remains, the skull is found, the pelvis, the femur, most of the bones are missing. That strikes me as scavenger.
The scavenger
after death.
The other thing
But
they said that
I
they
can't
were
say that for
partially
certain.
buried, and I guess after a year, that's not probably too terribly surprising.
Well,
but I say that for a particular
I also don't
reason
think that's
as well.
unusual with animals. I think some animals
No, they can bury
bury
kills
it
and
to
then
protect
come
it
back
from
to
others.
The reason they
Yes.
didn't find everything else is because it's further underground
Right.
potentially.
or it's been scattered because they did take
Yeah.
part of him away to enjoy. I don't know how to put that in the
Well,
you know.
and this is food that they abscond with
Right.
and hide the marrow, and they're going to come back for the marrow.
It's not inconsistent with other things, but there are things here I cannot explain, and I'm not going to try.
Right.
All I'm trying to do by explaining what I can is begin to narrow down those areas that are left open to be unknown. Let me put it that way, and say, this is weird. This is weird, but is it like, so? That comes up with another sort of criticism of all of these, which is missing person cases have a lot of unknowns in them. And the question becomes one of baselining. What is really weird versus what do we just think is weird because it's outside our experience? So by trying to say these things are within known experience lanes, I don't know what about the remainder. It doesn't mean that somebody else can't say, oh no, I've been out on 100 SARs and I'm always finding this to be the case, or in 80% of my cases, they drop the lighter because it's they're dumb. They think they'll be found tomorrow. I don't know.
Or they can't operate it.
Right. Right.
That's
maybe,
one from
he's been injured.
Jack London's what is it, to start a
Yeah,
fire,
now-
I think it was.
now
Like
he
he
hasn't got
cannot operate his fingers
Yeah.
to do anything.
Right.
The fine motor skills are gone. They're
Right.
gone.
Well, what was weird about the Messick case and that they couldn't find the rifle isn't weird to me here about the handgun. A 44 Ruger Red Hawk is a large, heavy,
Yeah, very heavy.
steel
Right.
revolver.
Yeah.
And while you or I might say, well, if I'm out in the wilderness, why would I give up my firearm? That at a certain point, you just go, this is way too heavy, and
Right.
drop it.
Right.
And you say, it's not
Yeah.
serving me now.
Yeah.
I don't need. Why do you get rid of a lighter though?
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah, there's weird stuff in here.
There's
I'm
weird-
not going to tell you there isn't.
Yeah, and there's weird, and so I think as they move through each part of the story, right? I think in my mind, they're asking the questions in the right places. Like, is it the case that a guy whose cash it is, and even if it isn't his cash, is it likely that he would miss the turn, right? And who knows?
not-
Yes,
and not
it
be
is.
able to
it's
find it
possible.
again?
It's,
Yeah,
it's
it's
possible, right? Like he
possible, but-
passed it, and at some point he says, "Oh man, well there's no turn. I guess I will turn around." He also has a phone. Hey, I'm going to be later because I missed the turn like a dummy, and I'll catch you later. So yeah, yeah. So,
but we don't know anything
interesting.
about his mental state at this point. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, there's things that are unknown to the people who are posing
Yeah.
the questions as well that they don't necessarily entertain, and that I'm afraid is another of the criticisms about the missing 411 cases is that when people audit them, by just saying, okay, well he's given us these cases in this area, I'll go in and select a few at random. They find that the case files as presented in the material, the books, the videos, whatever, are missing some facts that he is not putting in there that the secondary auditor investigator is able to find pretty readily by reading newspaper accounts, interviewing investigators, things that are left out.
Well, I think
and they're
that's a case.
Isn't this weird?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And I'm just. I don't know.
I get you.
I didn't audit them. I'm just reporting what I read.
No, I get you. Well, and there are a lot of opinions out there.
There are.
I scanned a few just to get the nature of them. I don't know the ratio on this, on X style ratio. Like, this is a 50-50 issue. Like, people can't agree, or like most an 80-20, whatever. It doesn't matter. Oh man, I completely blanked on what I was thinking that, but that's okay. We can move on. I think this case. Well, we're going to return to this case. I know what it was. When the books, right? If you're trying to cover a lot of ground, right, and not a lot of depth, right? You're going width and not breadth and not width or depth. Excuse me. I'm getting my
go on.
My TH is messed up.
I want to hear this because I will add to it. I think. Go on.
And so the idea would be, just in the defense of a guy that's trying to cover a lot of cases, and where you come back and audit a case and you say, well, you left a lot of details out. And he's like, yeah, I know. I was trying to present the relevant facts, the cogent details, right? Yes, there's going to be cases missing, but I'm also trying to cover 200 cases in a book, right?
Well, let me. Okay, so I will.
And so it's
I will
just
defend
an
him.
observation.
I will
right?
defend him in the same spirit, but then I'll counter that myself
by saying it's the point.
My defense of that is one of the things that this experiment with an experience of doing the podcast with you has been is that you misspeak, you miswrite, you mistype. You are trying to get content out on a deadline.
Right.
And I can think of a couple of instances. One is, of course, us mistaking him with the Beatles. The other one is I just re-listened to the Black Helicopter episode.
Yeah.
And one of the things I said is that, I went to college in Mount St. Mary's up in Thurmont, blah, blah, blah. Yes, Thurmont is the larger of the two towns up there.
Yeah.
And it is the town closer to the material we were talking about, which was probably why it was on my mind. But remember, this is the college I went to for 4 years.
Yeah.
And it is scarred into my memory in so many different ways. And it's actually in Emmetsburg,
yeah,
not Thermont.
yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah,
these things.
I thought that.
I am
and I didn't question you on it for that reason.
Yeah, I am sympathetic
that?
in that sense. On the other hand,
I know. We'll be right back.
he wrote 8 books in 8 years. So is it a question of him really caring about the material, or is it a case of him caring about the content getting out?
Well,
And
yeah.
pros and cons to both.
Yeah. I
Pros
hear
and
you.
cons to
I hear you.
both. I'm not. But if I.
Again, this
See,
is
this
where
is a
I think
trained
this
investigator,
is all, this is
too.
all misdirected, misguided scorn. But I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear you.
if he's
Like
and
if he's
a trained
if he's the
investigator.
purveyor of the information, it behooves him to make sure that he gets the relevant, right, and all of the information out there. But I suspect
He's a detective.
well, I understand that.
He
And
understands the importance.
Well,
of
the
these
other
things.
and I ran into that when I did a little bit of research. When I was looking at, there is a case I have in the notes here, and we may be able to get to it. Although
Yeah, and I don't want to.
We may have part 3 on. Seriously, there's a lot in this. We won't. We're going to get to it.
I'll shut up now.
Well, no,
I just
you're
need
good.
to point these things
These
out.
are important parts.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important that if anybody is interested in now and going to watch the movie, you'll see it with with our eyes and maybe an influence there. And you can make up your own mind, and we definitely encourage you to do that. This is really, frankly, one of the points of doing this podcast at all is to make people think, and to open their eyes to certain topics, and just to really see, is there any there? Yeah, I think we made a lot of cases there. Again, the Hedges case, I think we want to come back to it because I think it sets up a model, or it has criteria points to a model that I'd like to apply as an overlay to see what sticks. Not unlike we did a week ago with working through Bigfoot or Sasquatch or this series of beings as culprits. To include NHI, non-human intelligences, and craft coming down and absconding with people as well. And again, just the thought exercise, if we leave it on the table or we take it off, right, we've got to treat the information
this is an interesting,
with what we know.
This is an interesting way for us to, we're sort of poking at poor Dave Paulides, but we are also recognizing limitations in our own methodology for examining these types of events ourselves. So, hopefully we learn something from it, and we recognize our own limitations, and we recognize our own weaknesses, and can accept them. And maybe by accepting some of the limitation in this material, we will come to grips with the limitations in our own methodologies for the podcast. Because we're trying to stay on schedule, we're trying to stay consistent, we're trying to tell an interesting story. All of that is true for him as well. I don't want to beat the poor guy up terribly.
I don't want to beat him up at all, frankly.
Yeah.
I don't. I think that I'm happy to listen to things. I mean, he's a human being. He's going to make mistakes.
Sure.
Is he potentially motivated to capitalize on the information? Sure. We can make that, but I think that the way he presents the information, again, it's, and this is a point I make later when we get through the chapters. I'm going to say it a little bit now. He is not enforcing his view on these interviewees. It is this undersheriff in the Hedges cases that says, Paul, I did it again.
Not a beetle.
It's not a beetle. It is David Paulides. It is the undersheriff that says, this is a weird case. It doesn't add up.
Yeah.
The search and rescue people are like, this is rare that we don't find something.
Right.
This is, or in the case of Messick, or in the case of Hedges, right? This is strange. So it's not David Paulides saying, this is strange, isn't it? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hey, come on, man. Hey, come on. You're in my movie. Say what I want you to say. I don't think these people would let him misrepresent them without everybody knowing that he misrepresented them. So again, there's a lot of people that think it's strange. Well, maybe they did, and maybe it's out there and I just haven't seen it out. That's the other thing that I'll clearly say is, like, I can't cover every piece of information in order to have a true thought on it. Yeah, no, I agree. Okay. All right, so I think the next move is to go into Chapter 4, and this is centered on Sonora, California. So Chapter 4 presents a cluster of 6 missing people in the Sierra Mountains of California, focusing on Sonora in the foothills of the Sierra Mountains. Now, David Paulides visits Donald Vista, a picturesque overlook looming 1,200 feet over a reservoir below, and interviews the local newspaper man and crime reporter Giuseppe Recapito. There's a name.
That's a great name.
Yes,
I do appreciate a good name when it pops up in our stories.
Giuseppe Recapito. Yeah. Now, the missing in this cluster include 3 people. Again, we're just looking at 3 folks to get I hate to put it this way, but a flavor, a sense of what's happening here. But these 3 folks are similar. Now, Breck Phelps is a fisherman, left his car to hike to the river and fish. He went missing October 2nd, 2016. It was a 5-day search. There were 4 dog teams. There was a Cobra helicopter in the air. There was bad weather. That was one of the criteria points. There were boulders involved in this area. As a matter of fact, it's really like strewn with boulders, large-size boulders, house-size boulders, and everything in between. Next is Nita Mary Mayo. Disappeared in 2005. She left her car at Donnell Point. Her purse was there and other items remain in the car. The only thing that went missing with her was her camera. So maybe we presume that she stopped at the point, went onto the property at the overlook potentially to take a picture, didn't need the purse, for that, but turned up missing. Next, Patricia Sue Tolhurst. This was in 2014. She left her car also at Donnell Point. Now, these are 3 people over 11 years centered around one spot, and no remains have been found for these folks. Now, the sheriff's office doesn't speculate, according to Recapito. He's the one that's interviewed, and that's what he says. There's no speculation here. Now, oddly, remains were found, but not of any of the 3 missing persons. And they were never quite sure who they belonged to, but they know that they did not match the others. Now, zooming out of this location, if we were to zoom out, there is a wider cluster with 3 more folks missing in this area. This is just north of Yosemite Park, where 50 are missing in that cluster. So again, the movie does a much better job of going into the details and the strangeness around the Sonora, California cluster. But we'll leave you to the listener to go check that out. Now here, the movie does take a strange turn. John would say, this is where it goes woo. We'll just use that term when it triggers him. He's over there like shaking his
read
head.
A whole book on this.
Did you?
Yes.
On this next part? Okay, well, good. You can
Signed by the author.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well, now we're going into, this is where we meet a character quite famous in the Sasquatch, in the Bigfoot lore. This is Ron Morehead. Now, this is Ron Morehead's Strange Camp. Now, at this point, we are discussing a hunting camp in a remote section of the Sierra Mountains. And this is where, maybe you've heard of it, but if not, we're going to tell you about it now. This is where the Sierra Sounds were recorded. And if you're not familiar with the Sierra Sounds, John, do you want to give a description of the Sierra Sounds? It sounds like you've got more knowledge on board than I do.
So the Sierra Sounds are a famous series of recordings done by Ron Moorhead and his friends over the course of months that
in
are
the 70s.
In the early 70s.
Early 70s.
They had stumbled. The story goes they stumbled into this campsite and discovered that the sounds were going on around them. It mystified them for a while. They decided to record them. Then they realized that this area is ripe with Sasquatch folklore associated with it and sightings and all kinds of good stuff. So they took the recordings to some sound experts. I don't have all the details in front of me, but maybe we'll try to find some links in the show notes with the details. But the recordings were analyzed, and they came back as these are definitely animal sounds, an organic sound, organically created sound, probably some kind of primate, and they are not all within a normal human being's vocal range type thing.
They had a higher range and a lower range that precludes the humans. And one of the criticisms says that, well, it's clear that these are faked because they're mimicking the sounds. Now, just to set this up, they're trying to record the ambient sounds that these creatures are making. But the hunters are in a structure where they're protected.
Right.
And they are mimicking the sounds in order to provoke more sounds.
There are some cases, yes. And so they are saying that at times.
The skeptics are saying, you can hear them, they're making the very same sounds.
Right.
Now, the criticism is that then therefore it's fake. But the researchers that examine the sounds who know something about it, they were able to determine from the sound files that even though, yes, they are mimicable, that the sound registers at a lower frequency and higher frequencies to that the humans cannot.
There are some anomalies.
They cannot completely mimic.
And they can also determine that there are sounds created at different distances from the microphone that is recording them. So
they were able to determine that this was indeed ambient noise from an environment as described.
Right.
Like
now,
the mountainous side.
That sounds very definitive. There's still a lot of room for speculation.
There's a lot of room for speculation.
There is also the assertion that the sounds are some kind of language or
and that's the interesting thing about
them. They may be communicative. So the individual sounds have some interesting different names associated with them. Like there's one that of course sticks with me called the samurai chatter.
I was going to mention that if you didn't.
And
it has that flavor to it.
They are very interesting sounds, and you can find them on YouTube and elsewhere on the internet.
I listened to them a good bit of it this morning,
and you can make some decisions about your all on your own. And they are attributed to Sasquatch activity. And yes, while we've talked about all the sounds, Moorhead and his crew did have sightings and claim to have seen and even be able to identify individuals visiting them. It's not coming down to sit at the campfire with them, but like at the periphery of the wood line and So they have other experience to go with this. Is the story
right now? And one of the criticisms was that Moorhead and his pals through the years were never able to get visual pictures of them.
Right.
And I don't know whether they tried or not. I don't know. But that was something that never came forward. So David Paulides in the movie travels with Moorhead and a few others to the site. So they are all there together. And I think, as I understand it, they're there for at least 7 days. Presumably to look and see if they discover anything. They do not indicate that they found anything. The other thing that's interesting as well, and again, to be thorough with the information that as it's given to us, Moorhead also describes that this area is the scene of other phenomena such as lights, orbs, and one I think is unique. I've never heard of it in any other testimony. shafts of light moving through the trees.
Oh, that ties to the next one, though, doesn't it?
Yeah,
In a sense.
well,
but we'll get there.
Perhaps. Probably be curious to know what you think about that. But what he said is, you're familiar with a lightsaber from the movie. Like this is, a horizontal light that moves like a lit fluorescent bulb moving through the trees. And it's when he says a shaft of light, that's what he means, that this very precise shaft, 4 feet long, I presume, is moving through the trees. Very strange. Very strange. So again, I would encourage you to go look and see that part of the movie as well. That's interesting. You want to move on?
But we'll note,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Paulides does not say, just because we're introducing this topic of the Sierra Sounds and Sasquatch in this video about missing persons, that Sasquatch is responsible for the missing persons. It's just, I'm going to drop this topic in the middle. And
yeah, it does seem weirdly placed, but there is the tie-in is that this camp is a hunter's camp.
Yeah.
And, it's not like Ron Moorhead just wanders off, right? They're there to hunt. In the 70s, he was introduced to it by some of the old school hunters that would go, and apparently this is, you're not stumbling on this.
No.
You're packing in with horses. It's like 6 or 7 miles through rough terrain to get there.
And I'm not
I think even maybe a little further, but it's out there.
I'm not sure off the top of my head how far away this is from the Ape Canyon site.
The what site?
Ape Canyon? You're not familiar with that?
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
Where there were loggers that were from the 20s that were supposedly trapped in the cabin at the bottom of a ravine.
Oh, right. Yeah. I know that story. Yeah.
Throwing the rocks at the cabin, but there are no indigenous apes in North America, hence they must be Sasquatch. Yeah. I don't know. But this is a Sasquatch-rich environment.
It really is
in the Sierras.
It is, and,
much like the Adirondacks.
and
there are plenty of souvenir stands selling you the stickers, the T-shirts.
Well, even more so the more further north you go into Oregon and Washington. Yes. I mean, it's territory, and I think we mentioned migration last episode. Yeah. But that is a huge.
There is a theory that
corridor that they move up and down,
migrating up and down between. Yes.
And actually, there is a popular television show that also they have data points, and they're mathematically approaching where they search by the confluence of the data points and the suggestion of patterns of migration, and they're choosing spots.
Expedition Bigfoot.
Yeah. That's the one.
I've never watched it all the way through, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, I've taken it on just to see like the ghost shows, right? To see what are they believable.
Right.
Is this...
how are they approaching it? Yeah, I know that one is better about approaching it with some data points than...
They had some characters that are known in the community. And I think they're very earnest. And I'm going to hold back comment on that one. I enjoy seeing what they put forward. And again, it's television, and it does present interestingly. But is it advancing the topic? I don't know. We'll drop in later.
Any of this advance the topic?
It does.
Are we advancing the topic?
I think so. I think we're doing it justice. I mean, just to at least talk about it.
All right. Now,
there's a lot of stories out there.
Should we get on to chapter 5, which I know will be hugely popular with at least one member of our audience?
Oh boy. Yeah,
hugely.
I don't like when they. I don't. This is. I know that you regularly make these correlations, but I don't. All right, let's just dive in. We'll figure it out. Chapter 5: The Predator Case.
Dylan, you son of a bitch!
Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper. He's cloaked, man.
Come on, I'm here. Kill me. Kill me now.
Kill me. Oh, God. Oh, my gosh.
I gotta stop
you
now.
have to. Okay, so the Glimmer Man.
There may be more later, though.
There's, this was called for. I mean, that deep foray into humor and laughing is really only because Arnold Schwarzenegger and that accent over the years in movies is pretty funny and also entertained the hell out of us. But back on a more serious note.
That is one of the greatest movies ever made. Okay.
Is it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is.
The skeptic in me says you're full of it.
in future centuries, they will look back and say
that what we're going to see?
That was the United States of America cultural Beowulf.
How about that? Well,
exactly the same story.
The movie Idiocracy is also pretty prophetic as well, and so that's an alignment. I agree with you there, I guess. All right, so what are we talking about? So if you have seen the movie Predator, you will know that the alien in that movie, huh? What? Oh! I thought you were. Oh, I thought you were reading something that didn't agree with you.
Yes, but not in your not. No,
Oh,
it was a pop up on my computer screen that made me go, "How the hell are they going to do that?" But we aren't going to talk about that.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. So the alien, and spoiler alert, I'm going to spoil the movie Predator if you haven't seen it. Has a cloaking device, and it is quite a good effect from the 80s. But oddly enough, this visual effect that you can see in the movie is apparently supposed to mimic exactly what experiencers see in certain cases in the deep forest. And it has been titled The Glimmer Man. So this is an alien cloaking effect. So, and again, I mentioned it's well visualized in the film, and apparently that's what people see. Now, Chapter 5 of the movie describes an encounter with this. The wife of a well-known and respected optical physicist by the name of Bruce Maccabee. She has a strange experience in her tree stand while hunting on her property. So I didn't go deeply into this. I thought we were sort of going to dance over this, but I quickly describe that she... okay, so she was looking from her... Do you feel like you want to describe this?
I feel like I recall this partly because it was so Predator-oriented.
Go for it.
My recollection was that she is sitting in a tree stand to hunt on her property.
She is a hunter. She's legitimately about 14 feet off the ground.
She looks, she's up in the trees. She looks over to one side of her and sees that glimmer effect, that cloaking effect in the tree. And in a departure from the movie, so it is not what is sometimes called a scripted in the skeptical community of something happening in the wild that is directly analogous to a movie. This is just similar. Mm-hmm. The glimmer effect becomes blob-like, and a tendril reaches over to another tree limb, and the blob sort of follows that tendril from the original tree to the next tree.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is also coincident with, at least according to Paulides, a UFO sighting at a nearby high school.
That's probably a quarter mile away.
Right.
If I were to judge the distance, it's very close because she's in the stand and she can hear the band playing at the high school.
And the band sees
there is a bright light in the sky that's over the tree line.
Right.
And they all see it. They all remark upon it. And then, and so those are correlated. Those two events are correlated.
It is a beautifully curated UFO event for this, because it's related to the Predator, for this particular documentary, and that he has dropped into the documentary the Sasquatch possibility without making direct links, and he's dropped in a beautiful UFO encounter that also. Because were there missing people involved in this at all?
No.
It was he's just
not that we're aware of. That's not what's reported.
I think he is trying to take the Predator connection for the hunted. But
she's a hunter.
She's hunting.
She fits the bill because it's a strange story. Yeah. It follows the Sasquatch story. Yeah. And we're not entirely certain what it is that's actually cloaking. So we can presume that if it's coming out of a light in the sky, then maybe it's a non-human intelligence or whatever.
Right, could be anything.
There are some aspects to this that I do want to mention. So there's two things, but the one that I really want to focus on is after she saw this, she stayed in the tree stand for, I think, about, as she said, maybe in a half an hour, 45 minutes. Okay? So
Right.
she saw this.
Because she's a little bit petrified.
Well, I presume.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say the word petrified. I'll just say that she stayed in the tree stand until the sun went down. And so she said, and that's when I would stop hunting.
Yeah.
She went inside. When she went inside, she didn't say a word about it to anyone. Okay? Now let me continue that line. It wasn't until, and they had dinner guests that night, that her husband and her had dinner guests. They had dinner. She never said anything. And it wasn't until the husband got an email later in that evening when they're all in the house, and either the son or the grandson, I don't recall exactly. I would be able to find that. Probably in my notes here. But he emails and said, "Hey, we were over at the school tonight. We all saw an object in the sky. It was really fascinating. I just wanted to let you know." And it was that email that prompted her to say, "Oh yeah, I had an event that occurred to me out in the tree stand at that time stand." But the thing I want to clue in on is that there is a strange mental effect where it is a significant event, but it is, for whatever reason, not something that they mention unless there's some sort of prompting.
So
or that somehow the other anomalous event prompted her to say something. Otherwise, she said, I might not have said anything at all. And I'm going to just go ahead and spill that the personal experience that I had, I spent years not discussing.
I would say this falls under the heading of paranormal apathy. She sees something weird. It doesn't quite register. So it's a very personal experience what she sees from the stand.
Yeah.
As long as nothing happened to her, it's easy to just go, well, I don't know what that was. Okay. And I'm not going to mention it to anybody. So she doesn't mention it to anybody. She goes about her business and does everything the normal way. Not unlike the people who say, I saw the scary thing in the corner of my bedroom in the middle of the night, but then I went back to sleep. They're all...
So there's two things there I want to dig in. I know what you're talking about. What you're talking about
it's a human reaction.
It's a human reaction, but it is also, I believe, partially based on the idea that the acceptance of your community may or may not make you speak up about it.
This is also
So in other
true.
words, I'm not going to go to my church, and after church, she's not going to go to her church and start to, I saw a glimmering man and this weird thing, and people would think she's nuts. I
actually have this in the script for one of the future episodes, that somebody deals with something exactly this way, and then she found somebody who wanted desperately to hear the story, so she spills it. And it's written up, but the whole time it's like, well, we were never going to tell that story until this, and then. And when you hear the story, you'll say, oh, I know why she didn't want to tell that story.
Yeah, well, you can guess, right?
But it actually has less to do.
It depends on who you're telling. But here's the second part of that I want to dig in, and that is strictly psychological, right? Like that's herd
because
mentality.
Of the acceptance of the
if
community,
I say something strange, I'm booted from the herd.
Right. Yes, that was exactly part of her story. And it's in the script. Yep.
Okay. Now, there's that, and that is just non-woo, no crazy thing about it. That is just psychology of staying in the herd where there's safety.
Yeah.
Right? The other part of this is there is testimony, and I don't have these stories in front of me, but there are cases where two people experience the same thing, right? They see a craft, and we'll just make some of this. A craft comes down, it sits on the road, the headlights from their car illuminate it. The two of them look at each other. They look at the craft. They look at each other.
Like this,
and then the craft takes off. That's the end of it. They don't say a word to one another. They start the car. They drive home and don't talk about it for years. In some cases, there have been cases where it's like the other person realizes it's been 10 years. I have not said anything to this person about it. And as a matter of fact, like shortly after we had the experience, our friendship dissolved. And what I'm driving at is there is something beyond that. There is a residual mental effect on people that is in testimony.
So that's,
and I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah, that's one version of the story. The other version is that the first person will say to the second person, "Hey, do you remember that?" And the second person will say, "Yes." and we're never going to talk
Yes.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
like
yes,
if it is brought up.
Yeah, there are
it's
variations on this.
squashed.
Yes, I remember that. I don't know what to make of it. I don't want to talk about
Yeah,
it.
don't talk about it. Yeah, and those are other. They stray
Yeah.
into psychological, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
there's
But
an
they're all in
element
the
that
same.
can be made.
I agree. That's why I said
Yeah.
they're all under that same heading of the paranormal apathy, where people are trying to purposely put it out of their mind so that
Yeah.
they aren't thinking about it anymore.
Yeah,
And because they weren't physically hurt, or at least they have no recollection of that, or
Right.
there was no evidence of a physical. So it's like, okay, then that just never happened.
Yeah.
That is I believe that is some kind of psychological defense mechanism. Yes.
yeah, yeah. And well, okay. And if you want to take the route of, this is 2 feet in, sort of Jungian psychology type, Freudian, Jungian, traditional psychology that, we all study in college and they'll teach you. There is a paranormal aspect to this. That might be like they're joined at the hip, but there is an added effect that maybe comes from something that we don't understand that is keeping people from talking about these things.
Are you sir?
I'm suggesting
you're
that
suggesting
the phenomenon has a residual lasting effect. Like
Okay.
I go in a rainstorm, I get wet. That is a residual effect
Okay.
of the storm. Whatever this effect is, whether it's
so this is not just me saying, well,
this is not me
I can't
psychologically
bin this in my
protecting
head.
myself. This is something
Okay.
like that. If we're
Sure.
playing with
All
this
right.
information, the idea is that there are people that come back from purportedly, right, through testimony. They come back and do not have any recollection of their abduction,
Correct.
and they
Yes.
need to be regressed.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, in order to draw forward what their brains have captured, but they're somehow dismissing. And yes, we can look at the psychological effect that is strictly the human protecting itself from things it doesn't want to deal with. But there is also the idea that this is your memories being erased by the intelligence, so that right, we abduct you, but you don't have memory of this, and nothing to see here. Move along. So again, I am just working with what the theories that I know that are out there,
Okay.
and bringing it forward because it looks like that's what we have here in the case of Maccabee's wife. So
Possibly.
that's the glimmer. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're supposed to be playing with these paranormal testimonies.
I think all of those things can be related in a fashion. That there's an internal effect and potentially an external effect if there's something effect out there to make the effect, and all within the realm of possibility. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and again,
although even if I don't believe in an external thing, people are having an experience for sure.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe people just make this crap up to make themselves interesting at cocktail parties, particularly if the bulk of their story is a paranormal apathy. Oh, well, I would never have said this except for that.
Yeah. Well, and not to say
case.
that there aren't people that invent stories for the attention. There are. Period. But I think that the serious.
I'm not dismissing them all that way.
I know.
I'm just saying all of these things that are being experienced are probably falling under.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
That's
so
different
anyway,
from
we're pulling in a lot of these different pieces of testimony, and I think this is what really gets to the heart of these. What is causing this person not to say anything? Is it strictly the fear of being, strictly the fear of being booted from the herd or somehow mocked or made fun of? But I will say that Bruce Maccabee, her husband, is a well-known guy. He's a character out there. This is not somebody that would be mocking her if she came in and told a story like this. This is what I experienced. I'm told that's not what you would get from him. And it does seem kind of odd that it would happen to someone like him, if I recall. But, we don't really have time to dig in.
No,
deeper.
we're at an hour and 13 minutes,
already.
my friend. We need to pick up the pace a little bit. But you're going to hit this. I can tell.
Yeah, I'm going to skip over. It's a shame because I had a lot of interesting stuff here. And I think what I'm going to do is this. There's a big pin that I wanted to put in place for the backlog. And I'll just state it now, that portals, stargates, and wormholes, which is sort of the spectrum of holes in dimensionality that are as the currency of discussion. And I think it would be an interesting topic to poke at here, because I think it is what this community would say is at the heart of some of these missing cases, where we have these incredible disappearances. And what is the explanation if we leave that as part of our worldview, right?
Yeah, and I think I said that I'm open to this possibility because it does have some connection to more recent scientific advances and consideration of how quantum physics works. And it also matches up with some stories that have occurred across time in various ways, not just with missing people, but people who claim to have gone missing themselves.
Right.
Like, I don't know where I was for that 20 minutes.
Right.
And now I'm back, And so, how many people...
Yeah.
How many people come through the wormhole to the other side? How many people get trapped somewhere in the middle? Who knows? We can't tell. But, and then, sure, there are going to be lots of scientists who say, well, that's ridiculous. It can't happen. It doesn't work that way.
And this is,
but I don't know. And I have a sneaking suspicion that even they are going to have to say, I don't really know how that works, because that's what my understanding of our physics understanding of these things is at right now, is we don't quite know how they work. They're all theoretical, and yet there is evidence that suggests they will happen, and then that matches up with other scientific endeavors where things are constantly challenging us now and making us look at, hey,
exactly. Well, this is, if we use, just to kind of put this into perspective for those that are listening, right? One of those sayings from Einstein, we hold up Einstein as the pinnacle of mathematics in many ways, and we look to him as prophetic about our understanding of the world around us. He was the one that called entanglement spooky action at a distance. And he used the spooky word very specifically because
he didn't understand it.
He didn't understand it.
We still didn't quite understand it.
It was spooky, and it was not anything that was part of his worldview. And if I were to use your terms, I think he would have thought this was a magical thinking. And but he knew theoretically that it worked. And we understand that in quantum physics now, this is proven in bench tests on labs all over, that you can induce entangled particles and have this faster than light reaction.
Essentially a subatomic teleportation type thing.
So
and information shared so that the two particles at the distance are essentially the same thing, even though they're two different things.
Right.
It just gets weird and hard for language to explain.
And
I may be doing it imperfectly, and then somebody else can come in and criticize that and say, no, you mean this. And I'd go, yeah, that's what I was trying to say in my layman's terms.
Yeah.
It just gets weird. And then the real question should be, does that scale up at all? And if so, how?
Oh, well, I mean, if it's so that, and my initial intuitive reaction is, how can it not scale? Because it is the fundamental inherent primitives that make up everything, right? It is what we're all made of. And then if you this is the last thing I'll say. It opens up an interesting thought that entangled particles are those that have had this proximity, or that in the nature of entanglement is such that they have this. There's a proximity to them. But if you then work ourselves back through what we understand as time to the Big Bang. The Big Bang came from the most densest of objects in the universe that exploded. So we are all entangled all the time for forever. And that's what people like to use to jump off and talk about psi capabilities, telepathy, and all those other things. And we're going to get to all that. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to get to that. I'm dropping pins like crazy, although I'm not saying it. But as I look at the time. We're an hour and 18 minutes in. There's a lot that I wanted to get to. I had so many things here. I think I'm going to end with this because I thought this was interesting. I want to kind of put an interesting flavor out there. one of my theories about these disappearances is that portals are actually potentially random random events that the Earth endures, not unlike weather. And are we going to get to the point where we understand this phenomenon, we understand its effects, we understand its dangers, just like we understand that when a hurricane is brewing out in the Atlantic and it's rapidly approaching and we get the spaghetti models of where it's going. We do that because we want to protect our people and we want to protect our property and our land and our shorelines and all of that. So if we eventually come to understand that this is a random event, are we going to get things like this? And for Monday, September 25th, 2068, Boulder, Colorado, the outlook for this weekend looks bad for all you hikers. Coronal mass ejections are expected to reach us, and several rips along the southern edges of Pikes Peak have already been detected. Trails will be closed through September 30th when the sun flares calm down, the barometric pressure subsides, and the old faithful Rocky Mountain electromagnetic vortex goes dormant for a few more weeks. Is it going to be something like that where we can detect them? We know where they're going to be and we just avoid it. Is it the case that these parks are places we avoid already for these reasons? Did the indigenous already know about them and avoid them as well? These are all good questions. We're going to wrap this up here. John, is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No.
Okay.
It's just because we could go on for another half hour. And
oh my God, I didn't realize how big this was.
That is always a danger, and I did feel like we couldn't ignore this, so I didn't. And since you wanted to talk about it sooner rather than later, I was happy to entertain it. I'm glad we did it over 2 episodes. Yeah, I think that was the right call. Yeah. But no, I still think that this is best as best considered as a how do we approach any of these topics? So the kinds of questions we raised here, like, well, how much do we entertain the realistic explanation versus how much do we entertain the paranormal explanation? Mm-hmm. Is the paranormal explanation really any weirder than some of the normal explanations in some cases? Yeah, right. Are we getting to push the boundaries of what is known and unknown here? Yeah. So that's fine. And that's why I don't want to beat up on poor David Paulides. Mm-hmm. In raising those questions, that's perfectly valid, and he's not trying to say this is all this conspiracy. It's a serial killing Bigfoot that is able to fly his flying saucer through wormholes to all these different locations. And that's good. If it's just a question of, how do we approach these things? How do we ask the right questions? How do we know to ask? What is normal in the baseline? Versus, how far weird does this go? Those are all good things. I'm fine with all of that. I don't.
Well, so here's the thing, right? I mean, I've got all of these bullet points. They're all still very relevant to different topics. And you raise a good question, right? If we take too much of a reductionist view and we zoom so far in on any given topic, you run the risk of eliminating something from the topic because it's not in your mind's eye or it's not in your view, right? You've narrowed down so much that you leave something off. It's often when you back off a little bit and you see where those edges are, right? We went from missing persons and we strayed into UFOs, UAP. We strayed into Sasquatch and other paranormal topics.
The grand unified field theory of the paranormal.
Exactly. And
paranormal unified field theory, which is puffed.
Yes. Right. Ours is we're going to do we're going to continue later in this season, the paranormal consciousness study. And this really just sets up a lot of different models that we can talk at when we discuss that further, when we go into materialism versus idealism. So, boy, we have zoomed out. We tried to cover a lot, and I guess the elephant presented itself and was still too hard to eat. The pieces that we selected.
We'll do something so much more confined.
Yeah,
next
it
time.
will be very confined.
It'll be confined.
Yeah, and so that's I think that's just the cost of doing podcast business with these topics. All right, folks, that does it for us for this episode. This is Mike and John signing off here. We're going to come back next week, and boy, are we so stunned that we can't talk about where we're going next? I don't think we can. We may just leave it a mystery.
I was like, no, I know what's next on the calendar.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't, because Mike's getting old and forgetting things. No, I remember now.
Yeah, no, what are we going to
do?
So in season 1, we introduced the topic of witchcraft through Black Aggie.
Yes, we did, yeah.
And I mentioned during that one that Black Aggie is not really, even though she's sort of considered a folklore witch today, she's not really associated with the Maryland witchcraft cases from the colonies. And I did a little research on the colonial witchcraft cases. I found one that is very famous today, even though it too is not tied directly to history. It is a bit more folklore, but there is some history to it. So it was an interesting case to delve into. Mm-hmm. So we will be going south in Maryland to St. Mary's County, to the town of Leonardtown, Maryland. And we will be meeting Moll Dyer.
You don't say.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to look forward to that. This is one of those John tells us a story podcasts episodes, so I'm looking forward to that.
I bet you are after researching this one.
Yeah, this was tough, and I've got some heavy duty stuff coming up.
You did try to leave me with a big chunk of it in the first episode, but that second episode was all you.
Yeah, and I'm paying the price. I'm learning to narrow down and edit because there's a lot of directions we can go, but that'll be for another day.
It's tough. It is tough.
It is.
I understand completely,
it narrow.
And that's why I'm waiting for you to figure out where your sweet spot is.
Yeah, well, we'll get there. That's all right. In the meantime, hopefully it's fun to listen to us chatter away. Yeah. And we'll be back next week with Moll Dyer, and we'll love to hear this story about this folkloric witch.
And historical.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of both.
Wonderful.
But the question is, how much of which is which?
Well, we'll
find
out.
About the witch.
That's right. Which witch?
Which witch is which?
Great. All right. Well, that does it. And we thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week. And that's it. We're out. Bye.
Bye.